When it comes to the Antichrist, there have been a lot of commentary and videos that I've watched for the past couple years actually of people just claiming who the Antichrist could be, not really sure if it is the Antichrist. Some people were sure that this person was the Antichrist and that person was the Antichrist. And there's a lot of speculation. There wasn't actually any hard evidence. I've heard people say that Trump was the Antichrist. I've heard people say that Obama's the Antichrist. I've heard people say that Nimrod would actually come back to life and be the Antichrist. I've heard people say that Nero would come back to life and he would be the last Antichrist. But there was never any hard evidence. It was always speculation. Now, I've come across a man called Tim Cohen, and he's the only guy that I've seen with hard evidence backing his claims. In fact, the evidence is quite irrefutable. Once you see it, you won't ever think that there were any other options besides the one that he gives to you in this video. It's actually a 2-hour interview, but I only took out the important parts and I broke this video up into 2 parts. So in part 1, we will be speaking about the image associated with the Antichrist, and part 2, we will be speaking about the calculation of the number or of the numerical value of the Antichrist's name, plus the power that the Antichrist has over the world today. Now, I'm just going to get right to the point. He makes a claim that the Antichrist is Prince Charles. Now, every royal king, queen, and prince has a unique heraldic achievement that is unique to the one who possesses it according to international law.
That they had intended for him to be on the throne from at least 1969 at the time of his investiture. And we can see that in the helm, the version of the gold helm that's on his heraldic achievement, his coat of arms that was granted to him and first shown to the world in July of 1969 when he was invested as Prince of Wales. That particular helm is the sovereign helm. It's not just any helm. So for example, when Elizabeth went from being princess to queen, Charles' mother, her coat of arms was modified, and one of the modifications made to it was to change the helm from that might go with a princess, for example, to the sovereign helm. Well, Charles was given the sovereign helm from the start. I showed you a draft, and you showed your audience a draft of the cover of the 2nd edition in our prior interview, which has on it his heraldic achievement, Charles, which is unique to him under international law. It's not something that can be contrived. You know, some people have thought that, because there are actually laws, national and international, that pertain to heraldry. And in the case of a royal coat of arms, they'll take some of the symbols of the father's heraldic achievement or coat of arms, if he has one, some of the mother's, if she has one. They'll combine them into a unique coat of arms and add specific unique symbolism or individual devices for the person to whom they're granting the coat of arms to create something that's absolutely unique to them.
Basically, what Tim is saying here is that Charles' herald or coat of arms is made up by combining his mother and father's herald, which cannot just be made up. The coat of arms made for Prince Charles is completely unique to him, meaning no other person in history has ever had the same herald associated to them. Now, straight off the bat, if we look at Prince Charles of Wales' coat of armor, we see the first beast of Revelation on the left-hand side, and we see the red dragon, which is Satan, in the bottom right-hand corner, and we see a unicorn on the right-hand side.
On Charles' heraldic achievement, his coat of arms, you have a beast with feet like a bear, body like a leopard, mouth like a lion. So like is what we read about in Revelation 13. It's a simile. In other words, it's not actually the mouth of a lion, actually the body of a leopard, actually the feet of a bear. The scripture says it's like. So this is the thing that's invoked in our minds. This is what we are reminded of when we see that beast on Charles' heraldic achievement. But that is what it looks like, a beast with feet like a bear, proportions like the proportions of a body of a leopard's body, a mouth resembling the mouth of a lion. Then in addition to that, Revelation 13 tells us that a red dragon, red, and it's called fiery red and identified as Satan in Revelation 12. And in Revelation 13, that very same dragon gives this beast that has feet like a bear, body like a leopard, mouth like a lion, his power, throne, and great authority. So that was granted to Charles as Prince of Wales. he has that actual imagery, including the red dragon, on his heraldic achievement.
But in Prince Charles' investiture in 1969, when he was crowned Prince of Wales, who, by the way, the Prince of Wales, the Welsh flag is a red dragon, which represents Satan. When Prince Charles was crowned Prince of Wales, and when he was being crowned at his investiture, he was facing the dragon on the flags of the walls of the castle when he was being crowned, signifying that he is now Prince of the Dragon or Prince of Satan. To put the cherry on top, when Charles was asked who put the crown on his head at his investiture, Charles said his father did. Why would Charles say that his father crowned him when the whole world saw his mother doing it? This is because Satan actually crowned Charles at his investiture in 1969, as him and Queen Elizabeth were facing the dragon.
He was facing that dragon when the coronet was placed on his head to coronate him Prince of Wales, and his mother, who put the coronet on his head, was also facing that dragon, and both of them were encircled by that dragon, which was hung on huge white banners with tassels beneath them on the walls of Caernarvon Castle, where the investiture happened in July of '69. Both the interior walls and the exterior walls of the castle had those banners hanging on them. So in 1953, Wales adopted the red dragon as its national symbol, the same one, which is identified as Satan in scripture. In 1958, the Queen announced she would create Charles, Prince of Wales. So she had created him at that point, Prince of Wales. And then years later, she would present him to the Welsh people and formally invest him as Prince of Wales. That happened 11 years later, in July of 1969. So when the Queen put the coronet on his head to coronate him Prince of Wales, she literally coronated him Prince of the Red Dragon, or Satan's Prince. They were both facing the Red Dragon. He was made Prince of Wales. Wales was represented by the symbol of Satan at that point in time, and still is to this day. So he became Prince of the Red Dragon. When Charles later recounted who put the coronet on his head, he said, "My father put it on my head. My father invested me." Ooh. And yet the entire world to this day can go back and see it was his mother who did it. What in the world was he talking about?
Which
and the red
father?
dragon was also, the red dragon was also engraved on the backrest of the throne, a gray Welsh slate throne from which the Queen stood up to put the coronet on Charles' head. And he was literally facing through her, that engraved dragon on the backrest of her throne, the Dragon of Wales, and literally right behind it were huge red dragon banners on the castle walls that he was directly facing. And in back of him, directly in front of the Queen, as she was facing Charles, were more huge red dragon banners that she was facing. So he was literally invested as Satan's prince. That being said, he has the imagery that's there in Revelation 13.
Tim then goes on to make a very good point, and he states, before we calculate his name or the number of the beast, we first have to associate the imagery of the beast with the person who we claim is the Antichrist. The red dragon on his coat of arms. We have the beast with the feet of a bear, mouth of a lion, and body of a leopard. And then we have an image of a unicorn on the right-hand side, which symbolizes the little horn with eyes of a man in the book of Daniel, as one of the descriptions of the Antichrist. Not only that, but Charles is the unicorn himself, which is also a symbol for the fourth horseman of Revelation. The book of Daniel has described the Antichrist as a little horn with the eyes of a human that uproots 3 other horns as it comes to power. Let's see what Tim has to say about that.
Yes, and even in Daniel 7, where it talks about a little horn with human eyes, the same individual, the same beast that rules for 3.5 years, but the same person, first beast, but described with completely different imagery, a little horn with human eyes, that's the unicorn with human eyes on Charles' heraldic achievement, his coat of arms. It's got that too, also on his coat of arms. And he is called Unicorn. That's his call sign. That's the code word used for Charles by our Secret Service in the United States when he visits this country. And Charles calls the unicorn on his coat of arms, my little horn. And there's other stuff around all that, but the point is, he has all the imagery. He knows he has all the imagery. He knows who he is. People ask that too. They say, do he know? Does Charles know, that he's the Antichrist? My answer to that is yes.
Now that we have dealt with the imagery of the beast, we can move on to calculate the beast's number. And we will look at that in part 2 of this video, and we will also look at the influence and the power that the beast has over the world. So stay tuned for part 2.